Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue pour une autre semaine de français. Welcome back, everybody, for another week of French class. This is the second video of week 2. If this is the first video you're watching, that's okay. It doesn't matter if it doesn't really matter the order of the two videos. Just make sure that you are watching both before the end of the week. So let's take a look at the learning objectives. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to identify common classroom objects using appropriate articles and state if there are or are not these objects in their immediate surroundings. So if you have your notes out, you have your pen, your paper, and you're ready to learn, let's go ahead and get started. C'est parti. Ok, voici, c'est la salle de classe. So here we have a classroom. You can see a lot of different objects in here, a lot of different people. So take a moment here and see if you can identify any of these in French. Maybe you've taken some French classes in the past. Maybe this is your first one, so maybe you don't know any of the words here, but take a moment and see if you can identify anything. Okay, let's take a look. So here we have obviously a ton of different words here. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but I'll go through some of the maybe more convoluted areas. So let's take a look at the blackboard. We have above the E equals MC squared, we have un tableau. That would be the blackboard itself. Une craie, that would be a chalk. We have une chaise, this is a chair. Un bureau would be the desk. And then, of course, une calculatrice would be the calculator that's sitting on the desk. So right beneath that, we have two people sitting side by side. We have one girl wearing a blue shirt and a boy wearing a red shirt. So we have une étudiante et un étudiant. So the female student will pronounce that T at the end because there's an E at the end of the word. We have une étudiante et un étudiant for the masculine version of that. So take a moment here, take any notes that you need to, and once you're ready, then we can move on to the next portion. Ensuite, on a les articles. On a deux types d'articles. On a les articles définis et les articles indéfinis. So here we'll start with les articles définis. This corresponds to definite articles. And in English, we only have one. It's the. But in French, there are four options. We have le, la, l'apostrophe, and les. So be careful with the pronunciation of these. We have le, la, l'apostrophe kind of blends into the word, and I'll show you some examples of that. But then we have les. Then next, these will look familiar to you because these were the articles that you saw in the previous picture. We have les articles indéfinis, and this is obviously indefinite articles. And in English, we have a, an, or some. So we have, in French, we have un, une, and des. So practice that pronunciation. Un, une, des. So how do we use them? So it depends on the grammatical gender, and it also depends on the number of whatever object it is you're talking about. So let's start with the singular and masculine. So we have un livre, which would be a book, and we have l'ordinateur, a computer. So in this case, we could also say le livre and l'ordinateur. The reason why we're using that L apostrophe is because this begins with a vowel sound. And it's important to remember that it's a vowel sound, not that it starts with a vowel. Although in this case, it does start with a vowel and a vowel sound. But if we look down at the feminine singular, we have une table, a table, And we have l'horloge, a clock. So you might be thinking, wait, horloge, that starts with an H. But like I said, this begins with a vowel sound. And in French, the H's are almost never pronounced, rarely ever pronounced. So this one does start with a vowel sound, even though the word itself begins with a consonant. And I do want to point out, as far as grammatical gender goes, that there is not really any rhyme or reason. There aren't objects that are inherently masculine or objects that are inherently feminine. It doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the object. It has to do simply with just the grammatical gender. And a lot of students will ask, well, how do you know if a word is masculine or feminine? And the answer is, unfortunately, you just kind of have to memorize them. French is not as transparent about grammatical gender as other languages, like maybe Spanish is a lot easier to tell than French, but unfortunately, there are rules, but the rules have so many exceptions and then exceptions to those exceptions that they're really just not worth learning. As I learned French, I never learned these rules because they really didn't work that well. So I wish I had a better system for you other than just brute memorization, but I really don't. Just remember that as you're learning this new vocabulary, it's important to learn the grammatical gender along with it. Next, we have plurals. So we have plural masculine, des livres, some books, and les ordinateurs, some computers. So here we can see that in des, or even if we said les livres, that S is not pronounced. However, when the noun begins with a vowel sound, we make what's called a liaison between the two words. So it's sort of a connection in between them. That S becomes a Z sound. Les ordinateurs, some computers. Next, we have the plural and feminine. We have des tables et les horloges. So again, we have that liaison in between the two because horloge begins with a vowel sound. So take a moment here, practice some pronunciation, practice changing the articles from indefinite to definite. I think it's a good idea to look at what the word starts with to decide if we're going to use the L apostrophe or we're just going to use le or la. So here we have un crayon would be le crayon. Une feuille de papier would be la feuille de papier. Une étudiante would be l'étudiante. Un étudiant would be also l'étudiant. So here we have the L apostrophe because those begin with vowel sound. Okay, a couple more notes on articles. In most cases, an S, which is not pronounced is added to a singular noun to make it plural. So this is important to know because when you're speaking, the reason you're going to know that a word is plural is because of the article, not because of the noun itself. So, for example, if we have les étudiants, we know that that's plural because we have les étudiants rather than l'étudiant. So this can be tricky for people learning French because in English we do pronounce those S's, but in French, no. Nouns that end in EAU, like tableau, and like un tableau and un bureau, add an X rather than an S. So des tableaux, des bureaux. And the X is still not pronounced. And finally, nouns that have been borrowed from the English language or another language for that matter are usually masculine. Un iPhone, un DVD. So that's one rule that holds pretty true, although there are exceptions to that. But remember that borrowed words are frequently just defaulted to grammatically masculine. Okay. Ensuite, some nouns that refer to people can be changed from masculine to feminine by adding an E. So we've already seen this once. We have un étudiant and une étudiante. Then we have un ami, a friend, une amie, a friend. So one's a male and one's a female. Then we have un Français would be a French man. Une Française would be a French woman. Okay, now we have another phrase, il y a. This is a very useful phrase. Go ahead and practice pronouncing this with me. Il y a. Good. So this is used to state there is or there are. So here we can identify things easily using il y a. So the question might be, est-ce qu'il y a? So are there or is there? So, for example, est-ce qu'il y a des plantes dans la fenêtre? Oui, il y a des plantes dans la fenêtre. So, yeah. Remember though, this is something that we'll talk about a little bit in the future, but just for you to know, when it's negative though, we'll use de or the apostrophe. So if, for example, we were saying, est-ce qu'il y a un stylo sur la table? We would say, and if there was not a pen on the table, we would say, no, il n'y a pas de stylo. So don't ask me why. That's just something that's important to remember as you're negating. If you forget for now, it's okay. We're just starting. Okay, on a une activité. Here we have an activity. La question c'est, dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a une porte? So here the overall question is, are there or is there? And then we have each of these items. And it's up to you to look in this photo of the classroom and decide if there are or if there are not these objects in there. So, for example, dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a une porte? Oui, il y a une porte. So take a moment, pause the video, and I recommend that you read the question out loud and state the response out loud as well. It is going to help you to practice your French. Even though you're alone, you can talk to me in the screen. Okay, hopefully you paused the video and you did the activity. So let's go over the responses. Dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a une fenêtre? Oui, il y a une fenêtre. Dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a une calculatrice? Non, il n'y a pas de calculatrice. Ensuite, dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a un écran? Non, il n'y a pas d'écran. Dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a un ordinateur? Non, il n'y a pas d'ordinateur. Dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a des livres? Non. Dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a des cahiers? Non. Dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a une poubelle? Non. Dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a une horloge? Non. Dans la salle de classe, est-ce qu'il y a un table? Oui, il y a un table. Okay, so hopefully that was pretty easy. Just make sure that you're reviewing that vocabulary and knowing exactly what you're looking for there. Okay, et la dernière activité. Here we have the last activity. So it's sort of the same idea, except for I want you to look in your backpack. So if you have your backpack near you, then you can look inside of it. If you don't, you can pause the video and go grab it. Or you can just imagine what's inside of your backpack. You can think about your own backpack and decide if you have one of these things in it. So, la question c'est, dans vos sacs à dos, est-ce qu'il y a une calculatrice? Est-ce qu'il y a une affiche? Est-ce qu'il y a un crayon? Est-ce qu'il y a une craie? Est-ce qu'il y a un stylo? Est-ce qu'il y a un téléphone portable? So this would be a cell phone. Est-ce qu'il y a des livres? Est-ce qu'il y a une agrafeuse? A stapler. Est-ce qu'il y a une feuille de papier? So take a moment, pause the video, and do the activity. Okay, hopefully you completed this activity. Obviously, this is your own personal backpack, so I can't tell you if it's right or wrong, but hopefully you were able to practice some pronunciation here. Okay, and that's it. Since this is a week where we had 2 videos, this is a little bit shorter. But that's all of the activities. Now, if this is the first video you've watched this week, move on to the second video. If this is the second one, then you can move on to the discussion board and to the MindTap homework. So, as always, let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to shoot me an email. If not, merci et à plus tard.